Okay, welcome to another video. So for the past few days now, I've been sort of trawling the internet looking for new and interesting Linux distributions that we haven't seen on the channel yet, and it's led me to a new Arch-based distribution which has only just been added to the waiting list on DistroWatch. So the acronym is POS. I'm not quite sure how this part is pronounced, but if you jump onto the About page, it says PEUX represents the Linux penguin with a tux. So if we read the features, it sounds quite interesting. So, POS uses customised XFCE as its default version. BTRFS is the default file system with auto snap enabled, which I'm quite happy about as BTRFS is pretty much my favourite file system, and it uses the polybar as its default panel. It doesn't only look good, it's tied with apps that will help you secure your data and privacy. You can sandbox your applications, do anonymous surfing, among other things. And Fish is the default shell. Pacman is the default CLI package manager, along with Pamac as an alternative. For GUI, use Pamac-Manager, which has the Flatpak and AUR support options in the settings. Now we are going to be checking out their flagship version, which is the XFCE version, but they do offer some others of LXQt and GNOME. So you can download them from FOSS Torrents or OSDN, and the ISO for the XFCE version is a little bit over 2 GB. Now we're in the live environment right now, and we're going to jump straight to it and install it natively onto the main desktop here and take a little look around. Now it's fairly new, so there's not too much information out about it, so we're just going to see how we go. So we're going to click the install system, and we've got an untrusted application launcher, so we're going to launch anyway. I must say it does look very nice though. I do like the aesthetic sort of look of the desktop here, of the polybar at the top. Okay, so we've loaded up Calamares. We want British English. And next. Okay, cool. So it lets you choose which Office suite of applications you're going to use of either WPS Office, OnlyOffice, LibreOffice Still and Fresh, Calligra and Ghostwriter. We're going to go ahead and get the fresh package of LibreOffice. London is already selected, and let's just test our keyboard out to make sure it's all working as it should, and next. Okay, so for the storage device, we're going to use the Drevo X1 SSD, and we're going to erase disk. And we're going to do swap with Hibernate, but we could also choose no swap or swap to a file. So that will give us 3 partitions, one for our EFI or one for our root partition, which of course is using BTRFS, and the rest is assigned to our swap partition, which should be large enough to suspend to disk with full hibernation. Next. Okay, user account time. We're just going to call this one POS, and we're going to type in a password, and we're going to log in automatically and use the same password for the administrator account. Now, on their website, they do have a post about Calamares not correctly setting the auto login, so we might be booted straight into the login screen, but we'll see how we go. Next, so we can just check the summary, make sure we've made no mistakes, and then commit to an install. So I'm going to pause the video here, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so the installation has completed, and it was done relatively quickly, under 5 minutes at around about 3 or 4 minutes. So what we're going to do is reboot and check out our freshly installed XFCE desktop. Okay, so it has booted us straight to our login screen, but it looks quite nice. So we're going to log in now, and then we'll start checking out the desktop. Okay, so here we are. I do actually really like the way it looks, so we'll check all that out in a moment. But I did just get a notification for some updates, and I think if we click this button here, we'll get a nice little notification shade come through on the right hand side of the screen. So can we just click that to open up the package manager? I don't think that's going to open. There's a little button here, let's click that. So we've opened up a terminal there. I'm not too sure what command this is doing, perhaps an update command. It is indeed. So we've got a little bit to update there of a total download size of 387.58. So I'm going to pause the video here, and then we'll start taking a look around once we are fully up to date. Okay, so we're all up to date and we should be good to go. So we're just going to start by generally going over the desktop and how everything's set up. So we know we've got a polybar at the top, but we have got a slight shade at the bottom here, which I'm going to imagine is using like Tint2 panel, but we'll check that out in the applications in just a moment. So at the top right, we have our power button. That's going to open up the standard kind of power options that you should be used to for XFCE, and we will test out hibernation towards the end. So we have our little notification shade here, and we should just be able to clear all of those notifications like so. And then we have options here for sandbox, antivirus, Tor browser, and settings. It'll be interesting to see what the antivirus is going to be using, maybe like Clam or whatever it's called, but let's keep moving. So we have some little buttons here which appears to just be kind of changing connections. I'm not too sure. We then have our clock, and then clicking that is interactable, and it will change from the just standard time to the date as well. We then have another little icon there, and then we have our current sort of keyboard layout of GB because we're in the UK. And then we have our sound, and we can click that to mute it. And can we do anything else? We can. So using the scrolling button, we'll then go up and down depending on which way you are scrolling. And of course that will open up to let you do the update via the terminal. Let's just close that off. There we go. We then have the running application, so it's saying Conky, so we know that this middle widget here is using Conky, and that's showing us the date and time, and it's got a little bit of a shade around it, and I quite like that as well. We then have some quick launches, so that's going to open up the Pamac GUI, and if we go into the preferences here is where we can of course enable the AUR. So we knew that it said Flatpak, I didn't see that it said Snap, so we also have Snap support out of the box as well, so that's Snap, Flatpak, and of course the AUR in the preferences for your Pamac GUI or your Pamac-Manager. We can then open up this button here, which is Stacer, which is kind of like a system information tool and clean up for cleaning your cache and all of that good stuff. Let's close that off, quit. We then have our file manager, which I'm going to imagine is Funa. Is that Funa? Let me have a look. It looks almost like Nautilus. I think that is actually Nautilus, isn't it? So that's files version 3.38.2. And I'm pretty sure that is Nautilus, and it's got an interesting little theme here, not one that I've used before. I think the icon theme is Teller, but we'll check that out in just a moment as well. We then have our Firefox web browser, which is your default web browser, and again using the nice light theme there. I'm not too sure what this theme is though, we'll check that out in just a moment. And then we have a nice little drop down terminal, and while we're here we can check out a bit of information. So the kernel is the standard 5.10.11 Arch 1 kernel, and of course our default shell is Fish version 3.1.2. DE is of course XFCE4, and your Windows Manager is XFWM4, and the Windows Manager theme is Kimmy, and the GTK theme is Kimmy for the GTK2, and the icon theme is Teller Circle Purple, and the font is Cantarell. I don't mind that font actually. Okay, let's get out of all of this. Can we just click that again to collapse it? And let's get out of that. And here we have a little search bar, and then clicking that will open up our applications launcher. I'm not too sure what launcher that is. And we should just be able to type in any old thing like that, hit enter, and then we can launch our applications like so. And as you can see, we have the bar at the bottom here, so we should just be able to click that to minimize it and restore it. Okay, let's see what applications we actually have out of the box. So of course we have the About XFCE page. Is it going to open? It's going to open with an enter. Okay, interesting. And the XFCE version is version 4.16 because of course we are based on Arch, so we're going to have some nice up-to-date packages. So Button Manager I think is something to do with snapshots for BTRFS. I've not really used it too much. Let's just quickly open that up. Warning, you don't have the sub-volumes added. If you upgrade the file system, no snapshots will be created. If you want to create automatically snapshots during the upgrade process, go to the settings and add a sub-volume. So we're not going to do that now, but we could just go ahead and add the sub-volumes for the BTRFS file system to enable the auto snapshots. We then have the desktop settings for XFCE and files, which you know is Nautilus, accessibility, the ZeroConf browser, and ClamTK, which is what that antivirus tool is going to be. I've not really used it too much though, so I can't say whether it's that useful on Linux or not, but there we go. And let's keep moving along. So we have Discord installed out of the box. That's very handy. If you want to join the Tireless Tech Discord channel server, there will be a link in the description below. We then have Add or Remove for the Pamac-Manager and Blue Mail. I've never actually used Blue Mail on the desktop. I did used to use it a little bit on my Android phone, but it's a nice little email client for multiple accounts. Let's see how that looks on our desktop here. And there we go. Yeah, I've not really used it on the desktop, but it should work with pretty much any email account that you throw at it. And I know on the Android phone, I actually quite enjoyed Blue Mail and used it for quite a while. We then have CMake, display settings, Fire Jail configuration, Bluetooth, color profiles, Electron, Fire Tools, Appearance, Conky, which is giving us that widget in the middle there, File Manager, and your firewall configuration, which should be pretty familiar to anyone who's used the firewalls on Linux before. Very simple stuff with your status, profile, allow and deny with your rules report and your log. Let's keep moving. So we also have, we do have Funa by the looks of it as well. Let's open that up. No, that's just the file manager preferences. Let me just search for Funa and see if we do have it. So we do also have the Funa file manager as well as Nautilus pre-installed out of the box. Okay, And obviously Funar is the more likely one that you're going to use on XFCE as a default file manager on other XFCE distributions. So can we just go along like so? We can indeed. So we have HTOP installed out of the box, and we'll check out how much RAM this all uses on a fresh boot in just a moment. We then have LibreOffice, which we chose the fresh package in the installation. LPlayer, I've not used LPlayer before, let's check that out. So it looks to be some kind of music player, I do believe. LPlayer, long player maybe. Let's just go into the about there. So it's a minimal audio player for Linux. Interesting. Let's keep going. Can we use our scroll as well? So we can scroll through the apps like that as well. We then have the OpenShot video editor. Not my favourite video editor, but it's very simple for just quick cutting and adding clips together and all of that good stuff. So we have Ristretto for our image viewer. LeafPad is your default GUI text editor. Now I do believe it also has things like YouTube DL installed out of the box. I think, yeah, it does indeed. I saw that in the update process. So if you wanted to download sort of any sort of videos from video sharing websites, you can do that with YouTube DL. Let's keep going. So we've got the LibreOffice Writer, and let's just make sure that's all been installed correctly, and whether it's got the dictionary support out of the box or if we need to install it ourselves. Let's close that off. It doesn't. So to get the autocorrect spelling to work, you're going to need to install the corresponding dictionary to your language. Let's keep going. What else have we got? So we have the MPV media player, session startup for auto booting applications. We have a multi-writer, pulse audio volume control, and the settings editor. And do we have another page? We do indeed. So we have the settings manager, Termite for your terminal, a web browser, which is just going to be a link to the Firefox browser that you'll know in XFCE. Shortwave, Funar, window manager. Now Timeshift is another tool for managing BTRFS or rsync snapshots. However, I don't know if it's going to work if we don't have the subvols. Oh, we do have it all set up for Timeshift, and it has taken an automatic snapshot, as you can see there as well. And that was before the upgrade, so that's all set up pretty nicely for you to do auto snapshots every time you do a system upgrade. Or of course you can create them before you make any big changes to your system. Very nice. Let's keep going. So there's not too much more to look at here. Let's just have a quick look at the last few things. So we do have the Tor browser, and we have a variety, which is going to be changing your wallpapers on kind of a sort of an interval that you set to it. So at the moment it's on this one. Do we have a right click on the desktop to change it from here? We don't. So if we open up variety, let's have a quick look at variety. I do believe that is just kind of like a wallpaper changer. There we go. So that's going to change your wallpaper every 15 minutes, and it's putting them from the user share backgrounds. Okay. Is there anything else before we start having a little play around with some other stuff? No, so I think that's pretty much everything. What I am quite intrigued to see is what goes on when we click these buttons down here. So we have the sandbox here. Okay, let's click sandbox and see what that does. Okay, so it's opened up the little FireGel settings there, and now we can run these applications in a sandbox. That's pretty cool. Let's give it a go with Firefox. Can we just double click it? There we go. So that's going to open up Firefox, and that should be running in a sandbox using the FireGel stuff. Pretty nice. And it's all automatically got a few here, so it's also got GNOME, MPV, and the LibreOffice Writer package. And then we can jump into the settings and the configuration wizard right here. Nice. Okay, and can we just right click on that to close it, and we can also minimize it, and if we click that again we could open it like so. Okay, that's pretty cool. We then have our antivirus, so just clicking that will open up the Clam AV program that we saw there. And let's do a quick virus scan. So how does this work? I've never used this. So we can scan a directory. Let's scan our home folder. Okay, I'm going to pause the video here while this is scanning, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so our scan is complete, and as one would expect on a fresh install, no threats have been found. Now it's also changed the wallpaper while it was doing that, so 15 minutes have passed since we started, and I actually quite like that wallpaper as well. Now before we start testing out Flatpak installations and things like that, we're just going to sort of see if the keyboard shortcuts are set up properly out of the box. So we're going to open up our home folder, and we're going to now try and jump to a next desktop to see if that's working out of the box with Control, Alt, and then the directional keys of left and right. There we go. So these buttons up here are for switching your desktops. There we go. So we have 2 out of the box enabled, but of course we can add as many as you want. I usually use 4. Now let's see if the super and left keys are going to split windows side by side. So let's make sure it's focused, and it won't. So if we go into the shortcuts in the keyboard here, so this is, we're going to need to go into the Windows Manager shortcuts. I always forget that on XFCE. Where are we? There we go. So if we go onto the keyboard here, we should be able to set the window splitting using the super and then the directional key. So let's give that a go. So go away, that one, and let's go over here. So what we're going to look for is splitting windows to the left and right. Right, where are we? So we've got toggle, move window to next workspace. Here we go. So we want tile window to the left, and we want to do that with super and left, and then we want a tile window to the right. Now that should all work, and we should be able to split our windows side by side. And let's just test that out with the Windows Manager as well. That's not going to work. Let's test it out with Firefox. There we go, brilliant. Cool. Right, what I'm going to do before we try and do some installations in the Pamac GUI is we're going to reboot to see how much RAM this is using at a fresh boot before we make any changes to our system. Right, so before we boot straight back into the desktop, I thought I'd quickly show you the grub screen, because as you can see here, you can of course access previous snapshots taken straight from within your grub screen, and it has a max limit of 50. So what we're going to do is jump straight into our desktop and carry on. Okay, so we are back, and looking at the RAM, it's a little bit higher than what I would have expected from an XFCE desktop like this, at just under 800 MB, at around about 780 MB on a fresh reboot. And there of course you can see our swap file of 34.5 GB, which we'll check out with Hibernation in just a moment. So let's close that off now and jump straight into the Pamac GUI and try and install a few Flatpaks and see if everything works as it should. And we've also got some more updates to grab. Let's just go into updates and see what we've got to do. So that's going to update Bluemail, KeyWeb and Tor browser. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll start installing some applications. Okay, so we're all up to date, and we've enabled everything that we do need to enable for us to have Flatpak support on this Arch-based distribution. And I've also added the FlatHub repository, so we can go ahead and install them directly from the Pamac GUI right now. And what I've done is I've installed Kdenlive. As you can see, we are all fully installed with the Flatpak version of Kdenlive from the FlatHub repo. However, I've noticed that it's not appearing in any of our application launchers. Now I have done a reboot just in case that was why it wasn't appearing, as sometimes it doesn't work until you do a reboot when you freshly install Flatpak on your Linux distribution. So here is our application launcher. If for example we type in Kdenlive, you'll notice it's not there. Now this distribution does also come with Rofi, so if we press Alt and R, which is the default keyboard shortcut, which can be changed in the XFCE keyboard shortcuts, it's not here either. Now I'm not going to worry about that too much for now, because I know that it does actually work, it's just not appearing in our application launchers. So if we open up a terminal and type in Flatpak run, so I've already done it already, it will actually launch Kdenlive without issue. So for whatever reason it's just not appearing in our actual application launchers for the moment, but we won't worry about that right now. Now before we test out Hibernation, I just want to see what other themes this does come pre-installed with. So let's close all this off now. I do quite like this default one though, so we're just going to go Appearance and open the XFCE Appearance package and see what we've got going on. So we have the Adwater light and dark themes, high contrast, Juno pale night, and our wallpaper has just changed once more to a nice blue plain wallpaper. And we have a Lion and Quagor. So Lion's my favourite theme when I'm using a KDE desktop environment. I'm not too sure what Juno pale night is though. Let's have a look. Oh, okay, so it doesn't look too dissimilar from the colour scheme that you will get on Arc Dark, but we are going to leave it on the default of Kimi. Now what we're going to do is open a load of different applications and try and summon a Hibernation from the GUI up here, and if that doesn't work, we'll then do it via the terminal. So we'll open up Nautilus in our home folder, and we'll also open up Bluemail, and we'll open up one more thing. Let's go ahead and open up the firewall configuration, and now we're going to go ahead and attempt to do a Hibernation. Now if it works, all of the applications that you see on the screen right now will reappear once the computer's powered down and then restarted back up from the hibernated state. So we're going to go to the top right, and we're going to press Hibernate, and we're going to pause the video and come back in just a moment. Right, so we're back. I let the computer go into its low powered hibernation state, and then once it done that, I started mashing the enter key to then resume it, and it's loaded us up at the lock screen, which is usually a good sign that hibernation has worked. However, we'll know once we're at the desktop and all of the applications are right where we left them. So let's log in with our password. And there we go. So every application that we opened prior to initiating the hibernation is still there, exactly in the same position as they were when we left. So far, everything apart from the flat packs not appearing in our application launchers has worked out of the box. Now I think I'm going to wrap the video up there, but I am actually going to keep a bit of an eye on this distribution. It did originally just start as a hobby for the guy, but then he decided to actually release it as a distro, and there's quite a lot that I like about it. So thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and also join the Discord. There's a link in the description below. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.